Hey guys, we're here with Tom, who just went undefeated with Bird Up of all decks. So we also wanted to show off his list, but also you do stream on Twitch. What's your channel name?
Zipperrygo with 2 R's on Twitch and soon to be YouTube eventually.
And what do you stream?
Mostly Master Duel, a little bit of TCG as well, and usually whatever I'm feeling like, Master Duel on most days.
All right, well, I'll have the link down below, and let's just get to the list.
All right, first of all, we're on Bird Up, so we're on 3 copies of Fractal. As you would expect, 3 Fractal is your main starter. 2 copies of Kit. We're on 2 Karos as well, and 3 copies of Nerval. The reason I'm only on 2 Kit instead of 3 is because we're playing Bird Up. You want more ones. Kit isn't as good in a Bird Up. It usually just eats your normal summon, and you'd rather see a Nerval or you'd rather see another bird to kind of go through your LYRILUSC combos. That's kind of it just for the TRI-BRIGADE main deck. We're also on 3 copies of Cobalt Sparrow, 3 copies of Turquoise Warbler, and 2 copies each of Celestine Wagtail, Barrel Canary, and Sapphire Swallow. I would like to find room for a 3rd Celestine. I think it does come up sometimes, but typically, you know, the only back row you're playing is the 1 spell card. And 2 is usually just enough to get it done. Go through it in your mainline combo. You go through pretty much all 4 of these except the Barrel Canary. Barrel Canary helps going 2nd exactly. It's a really easy line into Zeus, especially playing through most interruptions. Barrel Canary in hand is enough to just make Zeus and pass on it. But that's it mostly for the in-engine monsters.
Are these ratios standard?
I would say they're pretty standard. I think like I've seen some lists with 3 Sapphire or 3 Barrel Canary, but I think this is pretty standard. Maybe 2 Kit is the only unconventional thing about it, but even then, I think that's probably what I would consider pretty standard. In terms of hand traps, we're on main decking 2 Nibirus. We're on 3 Ash Blossoms. Ignore the sleeves. Shout out to Go For Game as well for giving me the rarity upgrades.
Shout out to Go For Game, let's go.
Just enough to see my awful playset. And the last one, we're on a single copy of DD Crow.
Okay.
DD Crow looks really suspicious, especially out of tier format. But with the LYRILUSCs, it is of course a level 1 winged beast. It is an extra material for your TRI-BRIGADEs, and there's a couple of decks it comes up in. Having it at 1, it's relatively searchable as well. You can search it off of Shrag, off Shrag's second effect, and it does actually indeed come up. I think it's worth it at 1. This is maybe something I consider cutting. I don't think I saw it at all today, but I mean, still a little more testing to figure out if that's the right card. Onto the back row, we're on 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki, your standard searcher. You're going to want to see this in any hand. This is essentially Fractal 4, 5, and 6. 3 copies of Bird Call. This is what you're going to be searching off of the Celestine Wagtail. You're going to go through one of these at least in your combo. Usually you'll end with a second one for follow-up with the right hand, and it does, you know, it's pretty standard. You want 3 of each. They're your main kind of searchers. 1 copy of 1 for 1, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, and 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster in the main. 1 for 1 and Burial, I've opted to play these instead of like a 3rd copy of any of the birds or a 3rd copy of Kit. This is essentially a 3rd copy of Kit and can flex into whatever else you need it to be if you need a LYRILUSC to set up Barrel Canary and 4 non-engine. 1 for 1 can also be just any LYRILUSC from board, from deck. You're gonna probably grab Cobalt Sparrow to get a search. But honestly, I think these are better than playing extra names in the deck because they're much more flexible and they're essentially just copies 4 or 5 of, or copies 4 and 5 of whatever, you know, TRI-BRIGADE or LYRILUSC monsters you want to see. That does it for the spells. Onto the traps, we have a single copy of Revolt in the main. I'd consider putting this inside. I messed around with it in the side deck a little bit because it doesn't come up in every game. You only want to see it when you're going first, and you're going to search it at the end of your combo. Even then, that's if you opt to go for Revolt over Barrel Canary. But I think Revolt is fine in the main deck. I'd maybe consider cutting it for something else, for a 3rd Board Breaker. The board breakers, of course, 2 evenly matched in the main. I'm only on 2 in the main, along with 2 Nibirus. Onto the extra, we're on 1 copy of Almirage, 1 copy of Farigite, 1 copy of Bearbroom, 1 copy of Double Dragon Lords, 1 Hracefelger the Desperate Doom Eagle, 1 Shrag the Ominous Omen, Apollousa, and Avermax to round out our link lineup. We're only on Avermax because I don't own an access code talker. After playing today, I'd probably cut this for a 2nd Shrag. I think you lose a lot of kill range by not having access code talker, but to be fair, I think literally any bird or any 2 TRI-BRIGADE names just makes lethal anyways. So a 2nd Shrag helps a lot in the grind game, because typically you're going to use your first one off of Revolt exactly. Having a 2nd Shrag going into like a turn 3 or a turn 4 is really important. I think I'd definitely opt for that next time. For the Xyz, 2 Recital Starling, 1 Assembled Nightingale, 1 Ensemble Blue Robin. We're on the F0 package and a single copy of Zeus. You're going to play only these 3. You definitely don't need Promenade Thrush. Promenade Thrush just pops back row. It never comes up. 2 Recital Starling is very standard. This being at 2 is what enables the deck to play. When this was like limited, the deck was unplayable. 2 Recital Starling is a super easy line into Draco Future while building tons of advantage. Assembled Nightingale is basically just a Zeus pilot. It attacks directly, goes in for whatever damage you need, and just makes like a 4 material Zeus on top of it. And Ensemble Blue Robin is a part of your end board for hands where you maybe don't have access to Revolt. You'll end on a 2 or 3 bounce Ensemble Blue Robin instead. Really crucial part of your end board and a very important card in the deck. And that does it for the extra. Onto the side. This is where my deck gets a little less conventional, I think. My siding patterns are really, really bad. We have a single copy of Nibiru, 1 copy of Evenly Matched. These are copies, 3 of each of these, of Nibiru and Evenly. I play 2 in the main, 3 in the side. I side in the 3rd copies going 2nd. 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. For the amount of Sprite and other decks that we've been playing in the local area that kind of lose to Dark Ruler, I think it's absolutely necessary. I was on something else in here. I think it was a 3rd Lightning Storm and like a couple of other just terrible 1-ofs that just weren't worth playing, so I've opted to go for the Dark Rulers instead. We've got, speaking of Lightning Storms, we're on 2 copies. I want enough back row hate. I've been playing a fair amount of Labyrinth recently. I think having the 2 Storms is important. We're on 3 Imperm. I've opted to side the Imperm rather than play it over something like Nibiru or some of the 1-ofs in the deck. The reason for that is I think Nibiru is just dead into so many back row decks. Like, it hits Ariana, but it does nothing into Trap Tricks. It does nothing into... There's like a couple decks that can just dodge Imperm entirely. I don't love Imperm main deck. Personally, I'm kind of very hot and cold on it, and sometimes it's in my main, sometimes it's in my side. I'll opt for this or Ash, depending on the day. But right now, I've got Imperm in the side for specifically decks like Sword Soul, maybe Labyrinth for hitting the Ariana gives us another way to do that. We're on 2 copies of Royal Decree for any of those back row decks. I don't know if you can tell, I really don't enjoy the Labyrinth matchup. I'm trying to have as many ways in my list as possible of neutralizing that. And finally, we have our playset of Dimensional Barrier. The worst playset imaginable: 1 Secret, 1 Ultra, 1 Common. 3 different rarities. When you draw the secret one, you're going to win the game. When it's the common, maybe not so much. That's going to do it for the side. D-Barrier is pretty self-explanatory. It's basically an auto win into some specific matchups. Sword Soul doesn't really have a way to play through a D-Barrier. You hit a Branded, you resolve that against Branded. I don't really know what they're going to do other than go game 3. And I think it's a solid enough side deck. There's definitely, after playing it, I think there's definitely a couple changes I'd make. I think the DD Crow is pretty superfluous. I think main deck Nibiru didn't come up, and I'm definitely getting rid of this Avermax. But that's going to be it for the list.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the deck profile again. Make sure to check out his Twitch, and I'll have the link down below. Any last shout-outs?
I don't think so.
Well, shout out to Go For Game, right?
Shout out Go For Game. Woo! They gave me 3 secret ashes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.